Hello, Chin. Can you hear me?
Yeah, Ayub, can you? Yeah, we can hear you.
Yes, I can
So,
hear you. Thank you. So the audio is working for me, okay?
yeah, we need to wait for a few minutes. I think Jason, waiting for Jason to join.
Also, ask Kai to join.
Yeah,
Okay,
can you ping him or?
sure. Let me ping him because he might think because he was the main lead. Main lead is Lachlan and Kai are leading the transport.
Okay.
Message. I think Jordy sent an email to ask if Lachlan can join, but I'm not sure Lachlan got it.
Yeah, I wasn't sure whether he was aware about the new time and yeah.
Yeah, I think that's yeah, we don't. And next time I'll make sure I'll ping them first. Oh, Qing and Matt. Kai said he's trying to join, but he got stuck. Whatever the login process. Maybe that's also Jensen's case. Let me check with Jensen.
Yeah, I have pinged Jason. He is connecting.
Oh, wonderful, wonderful. So, Qing, you don't have any problem to join, right? Just make sure.
Yeah.
Okay, but both Jensen and Kai just cannot join. Okay. he's loading the page. I don't know why it can be. Don't understand. Weird.
Shall we just get started? Maybe.
Richard, are you in touch with Jensen and Kai?
Yeah, they both. Kai told me he's joining. He got stuck, and Jensen said he's loading the page. I have no clue, and someone behind China's firewall is always tricky.
I just sent him the link again, but I think
I
this
sent him
is
the
no
link.
different. This is no different than any IETF meetings, I guess. So, and I know they're able to join usually, so hopefully
Yeah,
that's okay. But we do need Jensen to discuss OEM, I guess. Yeah. And
I guess China really is falling behind, huh? Weird.
maybe we can start with the transport.
Yeah, maybe we just get started.
Sure.
And Jason can catch on. So, so Matt, so can we get started? Probably we should go ahead actually. Yeah. So welcome to the interim meeting. This second interim meeting for the focus of this interim meeting actually is to discuss OEM and transport. And since we already have an initiated working group last call for auto OEM and auto new transport, we need to make sure the open issue has been addressed. And also we request a direct review, and some feedback we already received. So we actually keep track of this kind of open issue in each issue tracker. So we'll focus on this kind of open issue. And so that not aware, probably you are already familiar with this. Actually, you will be recorded. And so this is the agenda for today's discussion, and we will focus on auto OEM, young, and auto new transport. And so I think we can switch the order. Maybe we can first discuss auto new transport. So Richard, you can give the working group.
Yeah.
Jensen join. Jensen join. You probably can.
Okay.
From Kai.
Yeah, that's great.
Kai is getting.
So we will stick to the agenda. The first discuss auto OEM, and then auto new transport, and if we have time, we will discuss the next step for the working group and for the interim meeting. And we already plan 4 interim meetings. So 2 interim meeting were dedicated to to resolve all the open issue. The other 2 interim meeting we will discuss some future work. So this is the agenda. I think any agenda batch seems none. Let's move on. And so Jason, do you prepare any slides, or you want to discuss AutoM using issue tracker to discuss?
Hello. Yeah, sorry.
Yeah, Jason, we can hear you.
Yeah, I'm able to do.
Okay. Chin, do we need to take meeting minutes? Is there a meeting?
Yeah. So Jody, can you have her take a minute?
Sure.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Okay, Jason. So first we discuss auto OEM. So you want to discuss this kind of open issue or current status of this auto young draft?
Yeah, sure. I think I can use the GitHub issue track to discuss it.
Do you want to share by yourself, or?
Let me see if I can. share the screen, right?
Yeah, maybe I stop sharing. Yeah. I can give you.
Yeah, so I can see my screen right now.
Yeah, yes, we can see.
Yeah, so this is all the issues with the standard drive for the working protocol, and it's a particular problem. Since most of them we have already provided solutions, so that they're writing to the so that at the first we can go over the comments by the young doctor review. So for the young doctor reviews, I think we helpfully address them. But yeah, for example, so that we can go over them one by one. So for the first is about the we have need to clarify the type defines for all the list case, and there are several list case, and original of the type of the list case, we just simply use this string, and right now we define the several type define to provide the more concrete semantics for the list case. So the cost type name and the meta case, the source ID and the row name. Also limit the format of them. But the one remaining issue, maybe we need to confirm with the reviewer that so right now the row name and the source ID, so they are not the standard in the RFCs, so they're just provided by this document. So there's no standard we can reference to say what's the format. So we just simplify use the format we think they're comparable for the implementation of the developer for this module. So we use this, but we need to confirm with the reviewer it is okay. So the next
So
one
Richard,
is about,
do you have any comments on this issue? Richard, do you want to make a comments?
Sorry, I was muted. So, James, I do have a question about the way you define, for example, source ID or destination ID. Can you show me your client ID or whatever? No, the one you just like, yeah, row ID, for example, source ID, for example. What's the rationale to define this pattern?
the pattern is we just try to use the pattern similar to the resource ID.
But resource ID must start, for example, I believe typically you must start from for example, should start from a letter, right? A to Z and capital A to Z. Basically, resource ID essentially is a typical programming language identifier. But here, I presume resource ID can be all like 0, right? And I'm just kind of curious, what's the rationale? The typical rule of thumb, whenever you do something, is you always follow the familiarity principle, right? Whenever possible, you don't invent a new thing, and it's always so annoying. For example, they're all different, and so what is your rationale to design a pattern of source ID or role name? But can you make your screen a little bit bigger? It's very hard to see from my side. Just a little bit like make the font slightly bigger. Yeah.
Sure.
Okay, great. Yeah. For example, I mean, I'm not challenging in a particular way, but I'm curious why this particular way. You essentially allow it can be all 0, right? And if the pattern is at least 1, and then your regular expression is not right? Your regular expression should be plus.
This can't be. Yeah, you're right.
And you could say you must satisfy both conditions, but why don't you just write the right regular expression? Number one, and number two is it does not specify this Unicode, right? For example, all the if you look at RC 7285, they all specify you're using Unicode whatever from which range to which range, and here you're just using essential strings, but they have all kinds of representations, right? And then you really have @ sign and underscore. Why this particular choice?
I think this pattern will be just keep the same pattern with the resource ID defined in the RCS 7285. So yeah, the resource ID actually use exactly the same pattern.
Okay, I can give a comments over there, but be fine. And the other one is specified using slightly different approach.
Yeah, but the cost type name doesn't have this constraint. You have the patterns for the standard because in the RCS 25, just simply define this as a distance string, so arbitrary string can be valid.
Okay.
So Jason, so this is the comments raised for young doctor review. So are you sure that the change you already incorporated and to address the young doctor review comments?
I think so, but people can check the GitHub issues. So we need to specify the semantics. So we have added the reference to link to the corresponding sections, specify the semantics, and give some patterns and a lot of characters. I think that's all the comments by the young doctor reviews.
So I suggest, Richard, you can take a look at this open issue and to share your comments, your suggestion. We can check whether this can be addressed.
Yeah. I just posted section 10.1. I guess my overall language suggestion is, given the young model and given that, for example, in 7285 is you define PID name and resource ID is as a type of a PID name. So therefore, everything essentially using derived types instead of, I guess, in computer science, is you do not define the same type multiple times. You define a common type, everyone essentially reuse from it. For example, I just posted 7285 section 10.1. You might define the common type name, and then all the rest you can just use instead specify. I guess this at least when you teach programming, you don't want people to redefine the same type multiple times, right?
Yeah, you're right. Yeah. We can simplify this. Yeah.
Yeah, this is section 10.1. You can read it from there. You can refer to it and you can say, hey, this is a requirement And this is a common type for all these type defined, right? And everything else is using the same type definition.
Okay. But I think we still need to use a regular pricing in the Yang syntax, the Yang parameter.
Sure.
So I just feel, you know, this role name or the source ID, and you know, there's no concrete reference. Maybe, yeah, you need to justify with some kind of example or use cases.
Yes, so that's the remaining issue, I think. So one solution is that we just reference to the corresponding section of this document. Because there's no standard to specify this, just this document adds some paragraphs to describe the encoding and how to use it.
Yeah, Jensen, I think one small comment is following. If I make a comment, for example, the PID name, you can see that it's encoded as no more than 64 characters, right? And the consideration was, if you pick it that way, you essentially allow the PID name to be to become DNS label, right?
Yeah.
So therefore it's not like generic max, right? And sometimes there are a lot of very subtle things. Whenever you design things, there are thinkings. Of course, you don't write it over there. For example, here we did not write a PID name must be no more than 64. Of course, underlying thinking was okay, and someone can just take PID name and whatever Kubernetes or whatever, and you turn into a DNS name. So therefore, that's easy. You have domain, and then you get PID name. Now, therefore, you can really like represent PID name as part as a label. And DNS label is limited to be 6 bits length, right? First 2 bits are the pointers 00, 11. So there are all these kind of considerations. That's why they're encoded in that way. I think somehow, if I may make a quick comment, is somehow they're missing in this spec. These kind of considerations were not. You can either refer back to it, right? Or maybe you can really say, hey, you must really follow this particular spec.
Yeah, that can be a very good thing. Yeah, you can consider this.
So Jason, can you go back to the issue list and to give a summary what has already been addressed, what hasn't been addressed?
Okay, so I think most of them have already been addressed. I just need to pick some of them that still have some remaining issues need to be discussed. Okay, is that okay? So, for example, this one, it's going to decide the what's a good type for the some of the statistic metrics. So I think the current
I think I have a follow-up comments for some of your questions you raised in this thread.
Yes. Yes.
So maybe you can check that.
Yeah, I also see your comments. So yes, Andy proposed maybe we need to use the guide to provide the semantics. Yeah, but maybe the uint is more simple.
But the one limitation is you set the time interval with 5 minutes fixed interval, maybe not flexible. You need to.
This already been addressed actually. That's a different issues. But,
okay.
Yeah, that's the issues actually made by Matt and Yeah, so currently we just introduce the migration parameter
Okay.
to configure this.
So
So
if
by
this
default,
issue
it's
get
fine.
addressed, you maybe close this kind of issue.
Yes. I think it's already been closed.
Currently, we still see, you know, we have 25 open issues. So we need to maybe, if you already addressed, then you should close it.
Yeah, because we're waiting for the feedback from the young doctor review. So I just writing the email for all the young doctor comment made by young doctors. So after that, we can close off them, I think. But there's still some, I think I think another remaining issue is about this one. Yeah. About this one. So for the meta list, so in the actually that's 1025, so the key is a distance string and value is arbitrary distance value. So we need to decide how to encode the arbitrary distance value in this list. So right now, actually, we have two proposals. One is we can use the binary to encode the arbitrary distance value using 664, and so this requires the server side to do the validation for the using syntax. Another solution is that so we can use the any data statement to include the arbitrary young data structure, but that means we need to define how to translate the young data structure to the JSON value.
Yeah, I see this issue maybe is you know, a very big issue. Maybe you should share to the list because you know, this seems not visible. The issue you discuss in the issue tracker is not visible to the mailing list.
Okay.
Can you share this issue to the list, and we can see how to better address this issue?
Sure. I think I can send this to the mailing list after the interim meeting, and so let me see. So another one is the it's this one. So the Andy also comment that we can add some type of response to simplify the substituting the extension modules. For example, some libgraph can be put as the typify in the base young module. But some of them, for example, for the couple name, so this is in continuity specific node. So we're not sure. So
yeah, I think Andy's suggestion is reasonable, and you can just define this type definition. So in the example module, so you can just use this kind of type definition will, you know, greater simplify this different reference expression.
Yeah.
I think what Jensen is saying here is that he has already implemented the changes, but only for, I would say, some few of them. It does not make sense for him to make the change. So for me, that's reasonable. So we just need to explain in the, I would say, when you reply to the young doctors, when it does not make sense that we to change this to a type def, and that's it. You have already, I would say, a good starting point to reply to him. So just reply what you have currently in the GitHub, and that's for me already a good shape. For example, for this one, I agree with you that there is no need to define as a reusable one. But just reply to I would say once you have all your individual, I would say, comments from the young doctors and also the other comments raised during the working group last call, just send those to the mailing list so that people can look at it. But for me, what you explained is reasonable.
Okay.
And by the way,
Yeah,
so
so
all the issues that are labeled as ready to close are those that personally I think that we are almost there for them. So we just need to double check before we actually close them.
Yes. Yeah. Exactly. So actually, I'm preparing the email to Andy to see what the feedback. So after that, I think we can close up them.
And by when do you think that you can send this reply to Andy?
After this interim meeting, actually, I'm writing the emails right now. Yeah.
Okay, that's great. Thanks.
okay, I think yeah, that's good suggestion. We don't should wait make another revision and then we prepare the email to send to the reviewer. So
Sure.
For all these changes, well, do you have any timetable when you can issue the new version?
The new version, actually, we have already prepared the new version. So just some minor issues I need to fix. So we target we can upload the new version to the data tracker by tomorrow. Yeah.
Yeah, just don't forget to update the trees because they are of all the changes that are so far. There are some modifications to be brought them as well.
Okay. I think there is still some individual comments by Matt, so let's not fully address them. So right now we're trying to close out the comments by the young doctor reviews. Yeah.
Yep.
So Jason, for this draft, I think we still need to wait for some feedback from other direct review, for example, officer direct review. Maybe you may need to issue another revision, but we can quickly address all the young doctor review comments and maybe have another iteration for some new comments from direct review. Yeah. Okay. So any other comments for this draft? So thanks, Jason, for the update. I think we on the track. Actually, we need to quickly, close all the open issue, and so maybe we can move to the second presentation. So Kai, you will present.
So both Kai and Lachlan are here, so they are the two main lead people. They probably can both lead together. Kai,
Yep.
Okay.
I have the slides I can share from my screen, but yeah, I'm
Okay,
not sure.
I will approve. Give you approve.
Okay. Screen window. Yeah, probably I just share the whole screen. Okay. Okay. Okay, guys, see the screen?
Yes.
Okay, great. So I'll be just summarizing the working group LESCO status for the new transport document, which is still the version 7. and we are already working on version 8, and the latest draft is already in the GitHub, but we haven't submitted to Data Tracker yet. So here is a summary of the working group Let's Go status. So we received like 6 reviews from different directories and basically from different reviewers. And then for all the reviews, we already have some responses, but for some of the reviews, we already got confirmation from the reviewers that their comments are considered as resolved. But we also have some rule blockers here, as basically we'll summarize in later slides. So the first is from RTG-DR early review, and I think that most of the review is some needs about the document, and Nikon has already replied and explained that, for example, the push order does not need to be strictly in the create order. So for this review, we are basically waiting for further feedback. And also for the security directory early review, mostly the reviews are some needs about the document and already fixed in the current in the next revision. And the reviewer has already replied that his comments can be considered as resolved. So this is best progress that we have right now. And then for the OPSDR early reviews, the comment is also mostly some needs about the document, and luckily has already submitted proposed changes, but I think according to the reviewer, there might be one round of revision. I think he's mentioning that some of the proposed text may be missing some references, and we will be adding these references in the next revision and then get back to the reviewers. And also, this is from Spencer, the art early review, and basically there are a few slightly larger issues. The first is that for HTTP2 and HTTP3, they actually use different ways to initiate the server push. And in the last document, we are using the basically settings enable push attribute in the settings frame, but this initialization process has been removed from HTTP3, and HTTP3 is using a different way, basically setting another what do you call it? I think some max push frame ID. I think that's the name. And then I already updated the document to address this comment, and also so this one can be considered is from us as resolved. And then there's also the question about, for example, there are some terms that we use, for example, should in the in some examples, and then basically Spencer raised a question that what if basically my understanding is that he's arguing that maybe here we should use something like must, and then I also replied to his email saying that when there, for example, there can be a case that the tips only provide a the update service for one resource, while the resource may also depend on some other resource. Basically, the dependency is not closed, and basically there are some, for example, performance and consistency issues, but this is tolerated in the current document. And basically, also there are some needs, and I believe I'll have fixed these needs. And we also responded with the proposed changes and waiting for the feedback. I think that's a status for the early review. And then for the last 2 reviews, basically the TSV art and also the HTTP-DR early review, we got some discussions into technical issues. So for the TSV art, I think here are basically summarized 4 issues. So the first is transport requirement is not explicitly laid out. And then also the second issue that the need for backward compatibility is also not stated or justified in the document. And then it seems to me that the reviewer is with background of multimedia. So basically he's reading some questions similar to like video encoding that basically he argues that in our specification and also in the examples, the incremental updates between two neighbors is also a step of one, and he's arguing whether it is possible to, for example, provide more updates between different, basically not between neighboring versions, but for example, providing updates from n to n+2, and also basically other possible encoding mechanisms. And also the status for this review is I responded with some proposed changes, and specifically for the first two issues, that the transport requirement not laid off and also backward compatibility not stated or justified. This is actually fixed together with some of the issues raised by the HTTP DIR review. Basically, we add a new subsection in the new revision to clarify the transport requirements. And then for the last two questions, must increment between updates B1 and also whether it is possible to define more efficient coding schema. And we modify the example to show that incremental changes can be offered between basically non-neighbor versions. And also it is possible in the current document to provide more incremental updates rather than the stepwise updates. But this is left as a server-specific options, and the document only requires that the server must at least provide the stepwise updates. So I think that's the status for the TSVR review. And then for the last one, basically the HTTP DIR review. So this review is probably the major roadblocker at this point, and there are three major technical issues. The first is the use of HTTP 2 and 3 server push, and the second is whether the session and all users are bounded to a single persistent connection. And also in his latest response, he argues that the meta layer basically providing the update graph might be too complex. And also there are some writing issues, for example, inconsistency of terms and specification by example, and we're also working on that. But maybe today I would like to discuss and get feedback from the working group is on the first two technical issues. So the first issue is the use of HTTP 2 and 3 server push, and basically Martin is arguing that first this functionality lack of implementation support. Basically, we do not have a working implementation yet. And also he argued that this the server push in our document is not intended use of server push defined in HTTP 2 and 3. And so basically my personal understanding is that we maybe have two options, but of course other authors or people from the working group may have some other opinions, but to me that we have basically two options. The first one is maybe we can just split again and then put HTTP 2 and 3 as another document. This seems like an easier approach from my understanding. Basically, we get around his reviews. And then the second option is that we probably need to convince Martin that use of server push can be justified. For example, there might be some good implementation practice, maybe not just from our working group, but maybe from some other protocols. But then I'm wondering whether anyone has some pointers that we can look into. And this is the second technical issue that in the current document, we require that basically each session where a user can request, for example, multiple tips and also get the incremental updates is through a single persistent connection. And my understanding is that Martin is strongly against this tight coupling. Basically, he argues that HTTP-based protocols should be based on requests rather than connections. And also, I see two options. The first is maybe we adjust the protocol and allow the same user to use multiple connections. But then we can also state that it is recommended to use a single one for performance enhancement. And also, maybe the second option is to justify the design, maybe with some other working examples from some other working groups. I don't know. Yeah, probably for option 2, we probably need some feedback from the working group whether you have seen such use cases. Okay. And
sorry to interrupt. Oh, okay, you're done. Then we can discuss.
Yeah, I'm mostly
Go
done.
ahead,
Yeah. I think for the next step, first, we haven't really followed up the working group. Let's go inside the working group, and that's probably one thing we should do at least in this week. And also, for the for some of the reviews, I already have some positive, basically some with minor issues, we can basically follow up and asking the reviewers whether the proposed changes can address their comments. I think this is also the next step. And then the last one is we need to continue the discussion with Martin and finalize the new revision. I think, yeah, basically that's the current status.
Okay. Okay. So thanks for diligent worker. Continue to try to address all the comments from director review, and I think we need to get a confirmation from director review reviewers and for the Martin's comments, actually he raised 2 roadblock, and probably this is something worth to discuss. So Richard, do you have any comments?
Yeah, I do, and I think number one, by the way, I do want to give a shout out to Kai and Lachlan, and these 2 guys are doing amazing work. They follow up and amazing. So that's how I will get started to see that. Second, I do want to say that Martin Thompson gave a wonderful review. He definitely is the top expert on related field. But somehow, from my point of view, there are essentially 2 issues, right? And we want to get feedback from the working group, and I'm going to share a little bit of opinion because I think Kai and Lachlan and we're discussing ourselves. We're trying to make decisions ourselves, but if ideally we make decisions within a working group ourselves. I would like to start with question number 1. Kai, can you show the issue about server push, right? Because that's a major roadblock. I personally feel that it should be okay, right? And maybe the one way out, one way to design. I can see that this is technical or non-technical, right? And because people can argue server push is not very widely used, and maybe eventually would go away, and server push is essentially intended for the server. For example, who has the computer website to therefore push some kind of part of image so we know what's going on. But philosophy-wise, to me, it looks right, and it should be something like a server push. Okay, right, and I think those will be relatively. On one hand, it can be technical. On the other hand, and it can be somehow also relative subjective judgment call, right? And so therefore, that's my point of view. What I would like to say is the following: that for option 1, we already tried to really have a split. That turns out to have a lot of redundancy, and that's why we'll move it back. One possibility is we make server push as optional, right? So even if eventually, I don't know what kind of a concern Martin would have. One point of concern is eventually server push goes away from HTTP4, and then we have something which is funny. So therefore, then we become not future-proof. One possibility to make this one is we make it is independent, right? And we say this is optional. I think if we make it optional, it will be faster approach. We can move forward. Of course, another one, if we go back again, we split into 2 documents. So that's my first
I think even in the current document, server push is already an optional feature.
Yeah. I think the main point here, I would say, Richard and Kai, is that if we have the server push in the document, we need to clearly justify why what we will lose if we don't have it in the document. So if you don't lose that much, I would say it doesn't work to continue having this complexity in the document. So you can just remove it. But if we identify that there's something that is really, I would say, fundamental for the protocol, and we have some, I would say, some benefit for having that. So we need to call that explicitly and clearly in the document.
Okay. My argument for why the server push main benefit to me is it reduces one round trip time of delay. Actually reduces the server load, right? Because server does not have to really send an update to turn into processing a request and send a reply. And now server can just directly send a push promise and send a push. So therefore, that's the one. I think that one is benefit. If we remove it, we do introduce slightly more complexity. For example, some kind of clients might have more overhead, right? They need to really always keep on this. They need to do all calculation to make sure there's a pending push over there. And then what if, for example, the server changes the way, because remember, the current algorithm is, the calculation is calculated according to the state, which the server has more information. We can try to justify to see why the server push is beneficial. And then we make sure that this is optional. Would that be okay? Did I answer your question, Matt? So basically, we make it clear why.
Exactly. Exactly. I didn't have time to review the latest changes you made, but this is something that should be, I would say, early in the document, so that the I would say readers understand the rationale for why we have that there. Because it's not Martin that we need to convince. It's, I would say, the process, and also the other reviewers who will have the same the same comment.
Okay. So we're going to add, I guess the suggestion is we are going to add a little bit paragraphs, either in the introduction or maybe right before the server push. We motivate why server push, right? Or in architecture, either introduction or architect overview, or at the beginning, or probably introduction or architecture to justify why it is beneficial, right? And of course, optional.
So probably my suggestion is maybe we can first to discuss with Martin with proposed paragraph, get his confirmation. Also, I see Spencer may have similar comments. We need to address this kind of issue. So if we can get some opinion from Spencer for this issue, and maybe we can sync up with Martin about this to see whether we can reach an agreement.
I think that's a good idea. Yeah, I think, first agree one. I think Matt and Qing, good points. Kai, Lachlan, these two guys are doing all amazing work. So let's see what their reactions are.
Yeah, I think we can definitely follow up with Martin, and also maybe engage with Spencer on that issue. And then let's see.
Maybe you first convince Spencer, get his confirmation, and then talk with Martin.
Sure.
I don't think Martin Duke is here, right? Because one thing he wanted was something future-proof, right? You design something which somehow, of course, you can never predict infinite into the future. What he wanted, Martin Duke wanted, what our AD was, a design which is a future-proof, in the sense that very, very robust, whatever you change likely, and the same would always stay. So in that sense, I think maybe we can argue with this, and we probably can also very quickly drop a note to Martin Duke, because indeed, if more and more people concerned, eventually server push will go away inside HTTP, then we become something dangling. We should verify with all three. I think that's a good suggestion. Lachlan, any quick comment from you?
Fine.
Oh, he said fine. Okay, great. Can I make a comment on number 2? Because I do want to get the working group and also our experts' opinion. I do want to see some comments over here. This is very tricky, right? And this is, again, you can see technical. You can also, this is quote unquote philosophical, right? Or relative subjective. I can see that there's some common practice, right? And a client and a server. Indeed, if you work at Google, I don't know if we have anyone from working with Google and so on, and you open multiple connections between a client and server. So therefore, conceptually, you open multiple connections, and those connections would serve as bundles, right? And just like, for example, you do a bundle of even like, for example, you have 2 ports linked together. Connection serve as bundles. Inside each connection, you're going to have set of sessions. I think that's the philosophy. Here should be based on requests, based on connections, but somehow they're also designed. For example, one important design is Zookeeper. Zookeeper actually is a session-based protocol, right? The important part of a session is there's a connection, and you are using a connection, and connection serves as an envelope. Anytime you lose the connection, then you lose all the sub things. So therefore, you don't do bundling. Clearly, from here, the discussion is we were thinking that if you have a connection, just basically like one important part of people who follow Zookeeper design is a lot of things are temporal, basically it's temporary, and you maintain the connection. The moment the connection is disconnected, the thing just disappears. So therefore, that's actually what have oftentimes very good, robust for tolerance and basically garbage collection properties. That's why it's really designed. And I can see that Martin Thompson has this philosophy, which clearly is if you don't really have a concept of connections, therefore you don't bundle the connection with the state. There's all kind of benefits, but then there's also error correction, which is sometimes tricky, right? That's why Zookeeper, this kind of protocol, even design. For example, I'm teaching building distributed systems. There's even concept called session-oriented consistency model, right? For example, the Facebook actually cares a lot about read your own write, which oftentimes is really based on a session, meaning you post, therefore your own sessions, therefore maintain consistency models and so on. We clearly use session-based, and motivation by Zookeeper, motivation by really RYW, right? For people who follow consistency design in distributed systems. But this one also is that Martin Thompson clearly has a slightly different view, at least from the review. I don't know what other people's reaction would be, and Kai gives two options. I think we'll be more than happy to hear about feedback of people with strong views, and we can discuss.
Yeah, I feel session bound to the single connection maybe is too restrictive. Maybe we should also allow bound to the multiple connection. And in NetConf, maybe they also have a similar work actually. Maybe we can reference some work in NetConf, because they did discuss bounding to the single connection, also maybe bounded to the multiple connection.
So for example, I'm not familiar, but I'll be more than happy. For example, one benefit of bounding state to connection is, for example, very typical. For example, in Zookeeper is you have they want the availability. For example, if a server is available, and if you lose a connection, this server should automatically remove. So therefore, you don't have a stale state automatically. You also would automatically essentially implement, for example, unlock, right? You put a lock over there, and oftentimes one major problem is people just disconnect it, and then you got a dangling lock over there, which is very hard to remove. And just basically, like for example, we submit to IRC draft, and you send one, they send you a confirmation email, and you lost that email, and suddenly you cannot submit that version again because that version is lost. And so here, if connection is disconnected, automatically all state is cleared. Right, those are very good benefit potentially. Essentially, basically, I guess people like call essentially this like a try and unlock a programming structure, right? So here, more and more we're feeling toward like session based, right? For example, if you disconnect, your state will be removed. So therefore, make the server to be very clean. That of course not really traditional design like a Kafka, and those are essential message queue system. You lose connection, you don't lose this kind of state. But actually for ours, we prefer that. I think maybe NetConf maybe has similar use case, or maybe not, right? So I think that's why I want to make it very clear. It does have a lot of benefits.
My suggestion maybe for this open issue, we can create a open issue in a separate thread, post it to the mailing list to get comments, and we see how to better address these comments.
Okay. So therefore, can you, as a to-do item, Qing, can you send us NetConf design? Right, I can imagine NetConf can be totally non-session based, or maybe there is a session dependent state.
Yeah, sure. I will send you offline.